Wabash, the gentleman's rule. You gotta believe in that stuff. The Wabash always fight.
Well, a brand new season, 2017 football season, just getting ready to get underway, and a new location because we're getting the last little bits of the stadium ready for Saturday's home game against Albion, much like Coach Morel is getting his football team ready. Coach, welcome to the show and welcome to the 2017 season.
Thank you. Good to be back.
It is great to be back because it means we are just around the corner from our first game of the season against Albion, one of 6 home games this year. Let's kind of start with that first of all. 6 home games, is that something you're excited about as a coach?
I can't tell you how excited I am about the fact that we're home 6 times. Our first 3 games are at home. Last year was tough. I'll tell you, playing 6 road games is really, really hard, especially on a Division III football team, but we are thrilled to be home often this year.
Well, that of course means only 4 road games, and one of those is a road game only because it's not here, but it doesn't involve a day of travel before and a hotel stay, because that will of course be the game at the end of the year just down the road, but plenty of time to talk about that later in the season. Our focus today is Albion, and that's certainly been the focus of your football team. How have the first couple of weeks of your preseason camp gone before the start of school?
Really well. We got off to a great start. I feel like we've built something every day, and we've cleaned up mistakes. Still, you worry about the first game mistakes all teams have, where you've only got 10 guys on the punt team, or somebody's careless with the football, those types of things. But hopefully we've cleaned that up and we're ready to go Saturday.
Hopefully the experience that this team has coming back will help with that as well. You've got veterans in the backfield. We'll get ready to release the 2 deep later today online, but Isaac Avant will be the starting running back, but you'll also have Tyler Downing back from his injury that he suffered at Hiram. He was part of the baseball team all season, had no issues there, and he's looked good in practice.
Sure has.
And then you also have a newcomer in the backfield with Ike James, who played at St. Joseph's College last year, one of the St. Joseph transfers on your team. How has he made the acclimation moving from St. Joe's to Wabash?
He's done a great job. Very good football player, completely unselfish team guy. So that's been a pretty seamless transition for him.
You've got a good experience at wide receiver as well. That starts with Oliver Page and Ryan Thomas, both outstanding receivers last year and experienced starters, and that's got to help the quarterback position, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Sure.
But you're going to have a rookie quarterback. How much help have they been able to provide to your quarterback core during practice?
Well, and beyond Oliver and Ryan, Kirby Cox has been here, it seems like a million years. Rashawn Jones is going to be an outstanding player for us. Brady Gossett, Cody Hall, they're a bunch of really good wideouts in the program who've been around a while, and that's really helped stabilize the quarterback play.
And then you add to that Dylan Burrish at tight end. Matt Panola will have a little bit of a new role this year with your football team as well. Talk about that.
Well, Matt's going to play running back, and he's going to play some H for us. He's just such a talented guy. We feel like there are 3 or 4 positions he could play for us on offense.
We got a chance to have a camera out at practice last Saturday, in fact, and watching your guys out there on the field to take a look at some of the highlights of that. As we talk about the work of your offensive line, some really good experience there. It really kind of starts with Kyle McAtee at center, but Daniel Kimball, Tim Leaf, also veterans. Russell Burning has been around the program, and he'll be in at that starting left tackle position. And then another one of your St. Joseph transfers, Thomas Bolin, into the lineup in the offensive line.
Absolutely. Actually, Bolin is the freshman. Slager is the transfer.
That's right.
That's okay. Right. We've got a million.
I'm still learning them too.
Well, we got a million guys out there right now. But no, they've just they've gelled quickly, and it's much more than football. It's they bought into Wabash College, and that's the first thing we have to do. You know, we're so unique here, all male, rigorous academics. They've got to buy into Wabash, and then Wabash football comes easy.
That leaves us with one position on the offense. You had a good group of quarterbacks. None of them have varsity experience throwing a pass attempt. Austin Nightingale is the only one that's been on the field for a varsity game. Weston Murphy is going to be the choice, but that kind of sorted itself out, as you told me the other day, as the quarterback position seems to always do. Talk about that process.
I think it always does, even when you watch NFL teams in camp or Division I teams. It works its way out. The other thing I think with a really great football program is every few years you're going to have this situation. 3 years ago, Chase Belton graduated, and everybody said, well, Wabash doesn't have a quarterback who's taken a significant snap. And then Connor Rice came along for 3 years, and nobody was going to beat him out. So you find yourself in this position. Weston Murphy's a fine football player. He's a sophomore from Arizona. Austin Nightingale will be a junior from Arizona. Then we feel like we have a couple other really good players at that position, so we actually have really good depth there.
I know you mentioned Tanner Skeel the other day and what a good camp he had, and a good spring last year as well. And you've got a freshman, Derek O'Connor from Roncalli, who's shown a lot of talent as well.
Absolutely. So we're actually thrilled with the position.
Moving to the other side of the football, more veterans back there, and it starts up front. You've got guys like Deontay Simpson, Bryant Hicks, Clay Fullenkamp. Talk about that front line of the defense.
Well, those are guys who they played last year, but as all great Wabash players seem to do, they kind of paid their dues the first 2 years, and now they're coming into their own, and we really feel like they're ready for a breakout season in the front there.
Linebacking core, a lot of experience. We were talking the other day. Last year you had to deal with quite a few injuries, particularly on the defensive side, but that can also be a good thing because it means you got to look at a lot of different guys, and they were guys who got opportunities to play when some of those seniors were out or got to play beside those seniors. And you also see that at the linebacker position. Henry Weberhunt got an opportunity to see a lot of time on the field, but then you've got Evan Hansen in there, Luke Siniak, also
Brock
plays
Heffron.
in that role. Brock Heffron, who saw a lot of time.
Yep.
And then you've got some guys backing them up who you can also add on the field in different situations who have experience.
Our depth is definitely better this year than it's probably been in the last couple of years.
Defensive secondary, you lose a big key in Austin Brown. But again, you've got some guys who have experience. It starts with Brian Parks, who's been a starter the last 2 seasons. But Ryan Walters had to fill in for DeLon Pettiford last year and did a fantastic job. He may have been one of the star players on defense in the Hiram game last year. He got valuable experience, and he'll get a start.
I think Ryan ended up starting 6 football games for us last year. So, no, he's absolutely ready to go. And then we feel like at the safety position, we're strong and deep also. So ready to go on defense.
Jeff Houston will be back there at one safety position, and certainly a veteran of this program, and somebody else who's seen a lot of time on the football field and ready to lead. Special teams, the best news there is you have the whole crew back, including both your punters, Alex Marr, who was an all-conference punter last year, and Derek Fox, who went down in the Wittenberg game with a season-ending injury. He's back healthy. And then Skylar Narig, who handled kickoff duty mostly last year, but he'll handle a lot of your kicking duty this year.
The other guy important to mention is P.J. Hadley, who's been the starting snapper here now for 3 years. And you never notice those guys until they screw up. And P.J.'s just been Mr. Consistent for 3 years at that spot.
I mentioned to PJ the other day, the Colts traded a long snapper for a possible starting safety.
Yep.
So that's just how valuable he is. He's worth a starting safety in the NFL right now. But he's been a steadfast member of that special teams unit, and it makes things a lot easier on Saturdays, I'm sure.
Yep.
You get ready now to face Albion, and it's a team we've been familiar with now. We got an opportunity to play them, and we're going to look at some highlights from a little different weather condition than what we'll see on Saturday. We'll go back to 2015 here and see some of the highlights from an outstanding game that was different than last year's game. In 2015, Mason Zurich, and we're going to see several highlights of him here right now in this piece, just took over in the second half and led us to a victory in the playoffs and continued to advance to St. Thomas. Last year we got out to such a great start at Albion, but they made that second half run until we were able to tie the game with the Oliver Page touchdown reception, and then scored in the overtime and made those big defensive stops at the end. We'll talk about those here in a little bit. But what do you expect from Albion, a team that was 1-9 last year, that's coming off of a very disappointing season, and is certainly a more talented team than a 1-9 team?
I think the record they had last year didn't really represent their football team, and we certainly had a strong bit of the injury bug. They were devastated with it at really key spots. So I don't think that's indicative of, I mean, it's Albion football. They have a tremendous tradition. The other thing is we played them in the last game of 2015, the first game of 2016. Typically you overanalyze your first playoff game and you overanalyze your first regular season game. So you have two teams that really know each other well. So there's very little chance of trickery or anything like that. They know what we do. We think we know what they do. And it's just going to be who can perform in the first game and not make critical mistakes.
Well, one of the things that we think we know about Albion certainly has been true with them for the last few years. They will try and run a lot of plays. They get to the line quickly, they snap the ball quickly, they get going. How do you prepare for something like that when you're spending the first few weeks just trying to get everybody introduced to everyone, getting your system in place? How do you prepare for something like that in the first game?
We've really had the defense practice against two offenses at the same time to try and simulate the game speed, which you never really can because they go faster than we could ever create. So we're going to try and do our best on defense. And we got into some hot water last year where we made a few defensive mistakes. We had a key injury in Austin Brown that really stressed us, DeLon Pettiford for that matter. So we've practiced more depth. I think part of the injuries was a product of them going so fast too. So we need to play our A game to be ready for this thing.
We'll take a look at some highlights from last year's win, the big overtime game. And that was a game that you were really able to get things going early. Tyler Downing in particular had a great game.
Sure.
Rushed for over 100 yards for the first time in his career. Had that massive 58-yard touchdown run in the third quarter. And that kind of put you up 27-17, and things felt okay at that time.
Right.
But then Albion came back and took that 34-27 lead.
Well, we had a block punt and we had an interception for a touchdown, and the game will flip on you like that.
And then you got the 8-yard touchdown pass from Connor Rice to Oliver Page with 12 seconds left in regulation. That tied it up. And then Tyler Downing wrapped up that career game with the 1-yard touchdown run in overtime. And then we mentioned a big defensive series.
Sure.
You started that overtime defensive series with that 41-34 lead, which was the eventual final score. But you got a sack on the opening play from scrimmage, and then you got two big pass defensive plays from Brian Parks, including the one on fourth down to seal the victory away.
Right.
How do you take that game last year and use it to prepare for this year, or do you?
I don't think you do. Just it was such a crazy game with huge momentum swings. There may have been 3 or 4 just big swings in that game that are so difficult to overcome. But again, I hope it's not like last year's game, just because I don't think my heart could take it. It was so exciting. But I think our kids will be more prepared this year too.
One of the things we've talked about, and it was a difficulty last year. Different kickoff time. It was a 6 o'clock kickoff
Sure.
time, so you go up the night before. You're in the hotel, and you're out of your regular routine. You add to that your first game back as a head coach,
Sure.
and you also had a couple of new members of your coaching staff. One of whom didn't even really get any time with the spring. It was a summer hire. And so it was the first time the guys were really working in a game situation with Coach Kanucky as the offensive coordinator.
Yep.
Those things are all in the past. Do you feel that now you're home,
Right.
regular start time, everyone's, the upperclassmen certainly have several months to a full year with all the coaching staff, and the freshmen have been able to learn from those upperclassmen about how this coaching staff will work. Does that put the advantages a little more back in your favor?
I think it, I don't know if it's back in our favor, but certainly our players are much more comfortable today than they were a year ago with, you know, 2 new systems on offense and defense, new coaches. We were still trying to learn some of the players' names. The first game comes so fast, but clearly, and then we do enjoy playing at home here. And I like, for college football, I like a 1 o'clock start or a noon start.
And it will be a 1 o'clock start Saturday against the Albion Britons. You'll see the pregame for our broadcast beginning roughly around 12:30 with this Don Morel show. It'll be followed by Jim Amadon, Steve Hoffman, and our freshman sideline reporter Joshua Mundell will be with us for the broadcasts all year long. We invite you to watch on wabash.edu/live. It'll also be broadcast on the radio, audio only, at 91.3 FM, WNDY. And of course, we'll have highlights up on the website and on YouTube, as we will have this very show as well. Coach, thank you very much for joining us. We'll look forward to talking with you next week.
Thank you.
You've been watching the Don Morel Show, your chance to hear the thoughts and comments of the head football coach of the Wabash College program. We will talk to you next week.
Wabash, the gentleman's rule. You gotta believe in that stuff. Wabash always fight.